You're listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ, McClellan, and friends. And here's Russ.
Talking about all kinds of fun stuff. Hunting trip, and as it relates to mental awareness. Fletcher, the other thing that happened, which was interesting, and I'm very proud of my son-in-law, he, for two things. This year, his first year, he started going on his own. So he's going 4 or 5 miles deep on his own. You got to remember, this young man was, had his dads and stepdads, but they were submarine guys. So they kind of grew up without a dad because they're out in, overseas or wherever underwater, right? So when he first started hunting, didn't have that experience coming from the west side of the mountains. Well, this year he was in that same trail late at night. Texted me on the inReach, said, hey man, my light's going out. I don't know, kind of a little turned around, but not too bad, but maybe come down the trail. So I leave our spike campfire and all that, get to him. And what I loved about him was A, he reached out. B, he was then honest. And he said, actually, it was probably going to be all right, but I was scared.
Yeah.
Because these wolves are freaking me the heck out, man.
Yeah.
And hey, if you've never been in a situation where there's like legit animals, whether it's cougars, bears, wolves, and you're not familiar with that, your capacity to handle that fear, that is adrenaline and the chemicals that are released in your body at that moment. I loved that he reached out, and then I loved that he admitted that it was just fear. Mm-hmm. And then we had this talk about his capacity to handle it, and the next time he'll be able to handle it better.
Yeah.
So this was part of the journey, the process. So what do we need to know about capacity?
Yeah. So capacity is a great topic, and almost all of us have a greater capacity than we realize. Like your son-in-law, he didn't realize that he maybe could make it through that situation alone. And so he reached out, which is awesome, because I always say reaching out is a sign of strength, not of weakness. Absolutely. Right? Reaching out, asking for counsel, advice, help, that's a sign of strength. So number one, he just realized, I have it within me to reach out. Because there was probably some trepidation about, do I look weak or, right? So he found a new sense of capacity as far as what I'm willing to do. And then you came, you showed up, you guys made it back, and now he's got this even a greater sense of ability, and he knows what a greater sense of capacity. Let me share a quick story about when I was training for triathlon, and never thought I could do triathlons. Not that there was anything wrong with my body, just a mindset, right?
They're hard.
They're hard, right? I didn't know how to swim, or I certainly had never ridden a bike that far or ran that far. So, I started doing the shorter distance triathlons, and eventually my friends said, let's do the half iron. I was like, really? I mean, I was actually upset. Like, why do we have to do that? Well, why do we have to go do those distances? But I was just coming up against myself, really. I was just mad because I didn't think I could do it. And then we ended up doing the half iron. And then that same group of friends said, well, let's do the full iron. And I was furious. I was like, really? When is it enough? But what I wasn't saying, and what I was really mad about, was because I didn't think I had the capacity. And I remember, Russ, when we were putting together our training schedules, and on my calendar, like in the weeks, I was looking at the distance I was running. Mind you, 13 miles was my longest distance. And here were my practice runs, 14 miles, 15 miles, 17 miles. And I looked at that and I was like, there's no possible way that I can do those, and especially those frequent, right? Well, I did do them. I did it. I took one day at a time. I took one run at a time. I took one swim at a time, and eventually when I completed the Ironman, that wasn't the biggest part of this whole journey, because at that point I was prepared. I had realized a new capacity in myself, but it was because of all the training that came before it. That's where the real work was done. The actual event, don't get me wrong, I had to put effort into it. But it was actually a lot more fun that day. But what I realized now, and I can never go back to my old belief system, is I actually have a huge capacity for exercise, for fitness, and for managing my thinking. Because, as you know, man, my body was in perfect shape to do it. It was the mind. That's where the battle was.
Yeah, the story.
Yep, exactly.
The story you tell yourself, which is fascinating because we don't often take time to think about our minds as a machine that we can control. It's almost like on autopilot.
Yes.
And we're just like, that's the puppet master and we're the puppet. But our brain's the puppet master and we don't have any say. It's a fascinating psychological dilemma.
Yes.
Because it makes no sense. Like you don't say that about your heart, right?
Nope.
You don't think your heart has a job, like, and your brain's hardwired to be like a drama queen. You know, it just hates everything. It's fearful. No trust in there, and so you got to control it, right? And then the practice of controlling it, because you say this a lot when you're programmed from a little kid. You know, you're nurtured in a certain way, and we all have different stories. You know, infinite combinations of good and bad. Sometimes good and evil, sadly, and that affects you.
Right.
And then we act like, as adults, it didn't affect us.
Yes.
Like we all just went to the same place and we're all the same, or if you were just more like me, we'd get along better. And if you just get into the herd, if you just come back to the fold, and if you just stop being that person that's, you know, blah, 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 right? Well, on the other hand, it's like that is so unbecoming and so dangerous for your self-esteem. To be average, to me, to color in the lines is dangerous to me. Like, and I know my programming is weird and I've been pressing envelopes a long time, but it's still like, I'm curious about your take on that. Like, if we know we're going to die, there's that old saying, there's two dates that matter and a dash in the middle, make the most of the dash.
Yeah.
Right? So I watched my dad die in 2020. My mom's on the end now. By the time this show airs, she might already passed with dementia. And I'm looking at this mortality issue. Like, you know, caregivers probably see it all the time, but I'm looking at it, you know, faced in my house, right? And I just remember when my dad passed away, it's like, why wouldn't you go for it?
Yeah.
Like, for me personally, it's like, and I'm not saying that's the right thing. It's just like, I don't know. I see people that have self-esteem issues and confidence problems, and that leads to other problems, and they're so worthy and they're so capable. And it's like, especially in my real estate community, you know, where I'm trying to change your life for the life you want and the life you deserve, like I mentioned. But it's not the tactics and the strategies. It's not how to make a phone call or how to do an email or how to run an ad or how to hold an open house. That's all pretty basic stuff.
Yep.
But getting people confident in themselves.
Yep. And
that's harder.
Yeah. And what's at the core of this thing called confidence? At the core of confidence is simply a story. That's it. So if we want to get people to a new level of confidence, what we have to do is change their mental story, because confidence is simply a story.
Yeah, and what I'm finding is that the people that really could use it the most, like to change their story, are bucking the idea of changing their story the most.
Yep.
It's like this, like you would think, you know, if I'm thirsty, I'll drink water, right? If I'm hungry, I'll eat. But if I have a confidence problem, by God, I'm not going to change anything.
Right.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I mean, it's like holding on to a rock at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah,
all you have to do is let go to that story. Hold on, choose another one, right?
So is that vulnerability? Is that this fear of being embarrassed, fear of being inadequate, fear of, just like my son-in-law said, I just had to raise my hand because I wasn't sure I could make it out of here.
Yeah.
But then once he realized it, now, you know, he might do it again. He might call me next time. He has trust in me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think trust is something that is hard for people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one of those things that growing up, you know, you get burned a couple of times. You're probably in life, you're probably like, I don't trust anybody.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Because, and again, this is such a good conversation, because when we stop trusting, we begin practicing something else. We begin practicing suspicion, right? We begin practicing self-doubt.
Yeah, you told me one time, fair or unfair. The problem with fair or unfair mentality is there's always a victim and there's always a perpetrator.
You got it. And we never make ourselves the perpetrator, right?
No,
so we always cast ourselves as the victim.
Yeah. I kind of admire people that say they're the perpetrator. Like, hey, I'm a jerk, but I'm going to own it, okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to kick your butt because I'm a jerk.
That's different, right?
Yeah, you know, I kind of admire it in a way.
Yeah.
At least you're being truthful.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and it's I see people with so much amazing talent. I have a couple people in my office are going to take home almost $1 million this year. They haven't been in the real estate business that long either.
That's fun.
That's fun. That's like life changing. I mean, they're freaks. So, I mean, it's not everybody's going to do that.
Yeah.
They're amazing people. But what is cool is what I'm really excited about is that I love it when people that just come into something brand new. Real estate's a great vehicle for that because anybody can do it because it takes 90 hours. And now we're offering a free real estate school. We have almost 40 people signed up since November 1st.
Wow.
And so here's the thing. If you just embrace the concepts, and the concept is really just to be vulnerable, to be yourself, to do it today, not tomorrow, to be honest. We're not putting people on Mars here, right?
Right.
It's not Tesla. We don't have to work for Elon Musk. I'm not nearly that smart.
Right.
So I'm excited to watch the people that come in with this attitude of abundance and beauty versus what you always say that the alternative is scarcity and suffering.
Right.
So, man, we're having a good time, and I'm really enjoying, as always, the conversation with Fletcher Ellingson. When we come back, we're going to have another conversation for another segment about mindset. Stay tuned. You never know what the heck I'm going to say.
Keller Williams.